Hey, today I want to talk about HDR photography. The reason why HDR photography is important is because our eyes can see about 20 stops of light, which means that if we look at a high contrast scene, we can see some detail in the bright areas and we can see some detail in the darker areas, all at the same time. Our brain is pretty good at doing that. Now, our cameras are not quite that good. They are more maybe in the 10 to 14 stops of dynamic range, so we're not seeing all the detail that we're capable of seeing in an image. And so one way to make your images more interesting is to try to capture all of that dynamic range so that you have the correct exposure throughout the entire image. And you need special software to do that. First of all, you can do this with just one shot, because now there is quite a bit of information stored in one photo, or you can take a bracketed series of images. And so, for example, you might take one shot underexposed, maybe at -2 stops exposure, one right in the middle at 0, and one at +2 EV. And then you can combine these three exposures to hopefully get all of the correct exposures in your final image. Now, you need a special program to do this. Lightroom will do it, Photoshop will do it, there's other plugins that will do it. But today I want to show you a program called Aurora HDR 2019. It's Skylum's new version, and I think what's so interesting about it is it gives you a lot of presets and looks and LUTs and things that allow you to be very creative when making your photos, and it's pretty easy to use. And so today I'm going to tell you about the top 10 things you need to know about Aurora HDR 2019. All right, are you ready? Number 1, the quantum engine. They've been developing new technology in their labs using AI, artificial intelligence, to look at your photos and figure out what it needs, and then it applies a whole bunch of these changes. And so a lot of times, right away, when you see the image pop up on the screen for the first time, it already looks really good. And maybe only a small amount of tweaking needs to be done, or creative choices could be done. But it starts off looking really great. Number 2, the new method of producing the HDR image produces less noise than the older 2018 version did. So if you had Aurora 2018, this might be a good reason to upgrade. The new system of making the tone mapped image eliminates a lot of noise in the image, even before you apply noise reduction software. So that's a great new feature. Number 2, or are we on number 3? I forget. Let's say we're on number 2, because this is still all under the quantum engine. The roll-off from the highlights to the shadows is a lot better with the new engine. This new tone mapping system is better at dealing with those highlights. It produces more pleasing highlights. Again, another great reason to possibly upgrade to 2019. Number 3, they've given you a bunch of looks. Now, let me send an image over to Aurora. Oh, and this, by the way, is number 5. You can use Aurora 2019 as a plugin. You don't have to use it. You can use it as a standalone program, but you can even use it as a plugin for Lightroom or for Photoshop. So let me bring you over to Lightroom for a second. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom. Now I'm going to just select a single image, and I'm going to go to Edit in Aurora HDR 2019. It's going to create a TIFF file, and it's going to send it over to Aurora. So let me switch over to Aurora. So I clicked on Create HDR, And now it's detecting the scene type, and it's going to run through all of the little steps that it needs to do to create this tone mapped image. And again, this is doing it to one single image, so it's trying to pull out the most detail that it can from this single image. So it takes a second. It's improving the colors, final touches, and making it awesome, whatever that means. Okay, so here we have the finished image. That's the before, and that's the after. So it brightened it up and it enhanced some of the colors. All right, now we have an image that's gone through the initial stages of processing. If you think it looks good enough, it could be that easy. But you can see in our histogram, we probably have some more work to do. There does look like there's some reds clipping on this side, and maybe some information clipping in the shadows, and there might be some creative things that we want to do. So let's keep looking. So I said number 3 was looks, what they used to call presets. So if you click on this looks panel, it opens up some looks choices down here. And if you click on collections, you can see that there are different kinds of, collections. Some made by Trey Radcliffe, Serge, Randy, and some basic ones. So let's say I click on Essential. I can go through and look at any of these options and see if any fit my image. And I can click on any of them. It's totally non-destructive. It's not harming the image. I can try as many of them as I want without any problem. That doesn't look bad. Now, the other thing is you might think, well, that's sort of overpowering. It's a lot of color. Well, every one of these things has an amount slider. Here you can just click and drag it down and find the spot that you think it looks good. And it's that easy. Then over on the right, there's all kinds of other tools that you can use. Make adjustments to your image, just like any other image editing program. A before and after tool, so this is before, and this is after. There's also a line you can use, and you can drag it around to see the before and after. Now, number 4, LUTs. Another way to get creative with your images. If you scroll down, there's something here called LUT mapping. Right now it's using a LUT called Film Style 2. So if I click on this, I can run over all of these different LUTs. Basically, it's an attempt to try to give the photo a filmic look. It adjusts the colors and sort of changes the reality a little bit. And so you can see there's a whole bunch of choices. I believe there's 11 different LUTs. So let's say I like Glorious for this image. But maybe it's too strong. So there is an amount slider here. I can reduce that effect. And again, I can check the before and the after. All right, notice my histogram here around the reds has moved in. I'm not clipping any reds anymore. Number 5, we already mentioned, you can use this Aurora HDR 2019 as a plugin or as a program, a standalone program all of its own. So right now I used it as a plugin. I sent an image from Lightroom to Aurora HDR. And when I'm done, I'm going to click Apply. And instead of exporting a new file on its own, it's going to export the file and send it to Lightroom. So that's what it's doing right now. It's exporting the image, and in a few minutes I will see it in Lightroom. Back in Lightroom, here you can see this is the original image, and this is the processed image by Aurora HDR. And if I zoom in, you can see the details. You can see that the leaves still look really good, sharp and clear, And if we try to look in some of the darker areas, I'm not noticing any noise, and I didn't even use the noise reduction slider that was in Aurora HDR. So the program is doing a good job of controlling the noise and processing the image. All right, number 6. Under the HDR Enhanced tab, there's a new slider called HDR Smart Structure. So this is what it looks like. And if I increase the smart structure, we'll see what happens to this image. You can see the details in the clouds really starting to pop, and in the grass in the foreground. So the smart structure is really bringing out lots of detail. Right now I have it really overcranked to show, what it does. That's obviously way too much, so I would back that down. And the other nice thing you can do is to use layer masks. So let me turn it down to 0 for a minute and use a layer. All right, I'm going to click on a new adjustment layer. And I'm going to increase the HDR Smart Structure to 100%. All right, so now we can see a lot of structure. And if I were to turn off this layer, you can see that's without the structure. And that's with the structure. So let's use a brush. We're on the brush tool. We're going to erase this effect from certain places. And I'm going to use a 15% opacity level. So I'm going to start in the sky. We don't want such a heavy effect in the sky. Maybe a little bit on the grass. And especially on the water. Don't want that to be over structured. And quite a bit on the sky. A little bit more on the grass. All right, so now that's with no structure. And that's with structure. So it's a pretty interesting effect. Again, we can see the total before and after. That's without any processing at all. And that's with the processing. All right, so let's click Done. And that's the HDR Smart Structure slider. Of course, I would probably back that off. Maybe around 60% here. All right, that looks okay. Now, number 7, an improved adjustable gradient filter. The adjustable gradient filter now has a highlight and shadow slider. Okay, number 8, we have the improved HDR boost details effect. Moving on to number 9. Number 9 is the price. This software is going to be released on October 4th. If you pre-order it now, you save about $10. So if you're upgrading, if you already have the software, the regular price would be $59 to upgrade to 2019. But since you're doing a pre-order, you can get it for $49. Now, if you're buying it new for the first time, the regular price will be $99. But if you do the pre-order, you can get it now for $89. And I'll put links in the description and in my full blog post if you want to. It's an affiliate link and that helps out my channel, but I wouldn't be recommending this software if I didn't use it myself, and I think that it's really good stuff. All right, and number 10, there are pre-order bonuses. Let me tell you what they are. The pre-order bonuses are a video tutorial by Trey Radcliffe, who is known for specializing in HDR photography, and a landscape photography handbook by David Johnson, and Burning Moods Looks by Richard Harrington. Again, looks are like presets for Aurora HDR 2019. So I hope you found this interesting. It looks like it's going to be a very helpful program, and I know that I'll be using it, and if you're interested in using it too, again, check out my full blog post and check out the description below the video, and see if this is something you're interested in. If you liked this video, like and subscribe, post comments, do all that usual kind of stuff, and we'll see you in the next video.